A widowed millionaire feeling lonely decides to get married again. A young woman who starts working as his assistant seems to be the only one who doesn't see him just as a symbol of power. If this story caught your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. The Hamptons' summer breeze carried the scent of salt and wealth through the open windows of Ethan Blackwood's sprawling oceanfront estate. At 55, he had everything money could buy: a billion-dollar investment firm, 3 mansions across the country, a collection of vintage cars that would make collectors weep, and a life that many would envy. Yet, as he stood on his balcony overlooking the Atlantic, champagne glass in hand, Ethan felt nothing but a hollowness that had become his constant companion. 5 years had passed since Clara left this world after a devastating illness, leaving him alone in their dream home. The doctors had done everything they could, but some battles couldn't be won, even with all the money in the world. The memory of her final moments still haunted him, the way she squeezed his hand one last time, her whispered, "I love you," barely, audible over the hospital machines. "Mr. Blackwood," a voice interrupted his thoughts, "the catering staff is asking about the wine selection for tonight's fundraiser." Ethan turned to face his house manager, Gerald, a man who had served him faithfully for over a decade. "Tell them whatever they recommend." "I don't particularly care," he replied, setting down his glass on the marble railing. "Very well, sir." Gerald hesitated. "Also, Ms. Reynolds from the foundation called again. She'd like to discuss the annual charity gala." "Schedule it for next week. I'm not in the mood for philanthropy discussions today." Gerald nodded and retreated back into the house, leaving Ethan alone with the vastness of the ocean and his thoughts. Tonight's fundraiser was just another meaningless social obligation, another evening of fake smiles and shallow conversations with people who cared more about his net worth than who he was as a person. Inside, Ethan's palatial home was a monument to success. Artwork worth millions adorned the walls, furniture custom-made by the world's finest craftsmen filled each room, and technology that wasn't available to the public yet was integrated seamlessly throughout the estate. Yet for all its opulence, the place felt more like a museum than a home. His phone buzzed. Her message from his daughter, Olivia, who was studying at Yale. "Can't make it home this weekend, Dad. Finals prep. Sorry, love you." He typed a brief response. "No problem. Good luck. Love you too." Ethan slipped the phone back into his pocket, unsurprised. Olivia's visits had become increasingly rare since she left for college. He couldn't blame her. Their relationship had grown strained after Clara's passing. He had buried himself in work, expanding his empire while his daughter processed her grief alone. By the time he realized his mistake, there was already an emotional chasm between them that neither knew how to bridge. The mansion's intercom chimed. "Sir, there's someone here to see you. Says her name is Kate Morgan from Precision Staffing. She's here about the personal assistant position." Ethan sighed. He'd forgotten about the interview his HR department had scheduled. After his previous assistant had quit, citing his impossible standards and unpredictable moods, the company had suggested bringing in someone new, someone who might actually last longer than 6 months. "Send her to the library. I'll be there in 5 minutes." He straightened his custom Tom Ford suit and made his way through the labyrinth of his home. The library was his sanctuary, the one room that still felt somewhat connected to Clara. She had been the reader in their relationship, and he had built this room for her, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with first editions and rare books she had loved. When he entered, a young woman stood by the window, examining the spines of books on a nearby shelf. She turned as he approached, and Ethan was struck by the simplicity of her appearance. In his world of excess, she was refreshingly understated, wearing a modest navy blue dress, minimal jewelry, and her auburn hair pulled back in a neat bun. She couldn't have been more than 30. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, extending her hand, "I'm Kate Morgan. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me." Her handshake was firm, her gaze direct. There was something in her eyes, a quiet confidence. That caught him off guard. "Please sit," he gestured to the leather chairs by the fireplace. "Your agency speaks highly of you." "They're kind," she replied, taking a seat. But I prefer to let my work speak for itself. And what work is that exactly? Your resume says you've assisted executives before, but nothing at this level. I was executive assistant to the CEO of Meridian Technologies for 3 years, and before that I managed operations for a non-profit foundation. Different scales, perhaps, but the principles remain the same: anticipating needs, solving problems before they arise, and maintaining absolute discretion. Ethan studied her. There was something refreshing about her lack of pretense. Everyone who entered his world seemed eager to impress, to conform to the unspoken rules of his social stratum. Kate Morgan seemed almost indifferent to it all. "This position requires complete dedication," he said. "My schedule is demanding, my travel constant, and my expectations exacting. The previous 5 assistants couldn't handle it." A slight smile curved her lips. "Perhaps they weren't the right fit. I don't intimidate easily, Mr. Blackwood." "And why is that?" "Because I understand the difference between a demanding boss and a difficult situation. One I can work with, the other I can solve." Ethan found himself intrigued. "What do you know about me, Miss Morgan?" "I know you built Blackwood Investments from nothing into one of the most successful firms on Wall Street. I know you're known for being brilliant but merciless in business. I know you're a widower with a daughter at Yale, and that you've become somewhat of a recluse in recent years, despite your social obligations." She paused. "And I know that finding good help has been challenging for you." Her directness was jarring. No one spoke to him this way anymore. After Clara's passing, people walked on eggshells around him, carefully avoiding any topic that might cause discomfort. "You've done your homework," he acknowledged. "It's part of the job I'm applying for." The interview continued, with Ethan asking increasingly difficult questions about how she would handle specific scenarios: irate business partners, scheduling conflicts, personal matters that required delicate handling. To each, Kate provided thoughtful, measured responses that demonstrated both competence and discretion. As the conversation progressed, Ethan found himself drawn to her calm demeanor and clear thinking. Unlike the parade of eager-to-please assistants before her, Kate seemed to view the position as a professional challenge rather than an opportunity to gain proximity to wealth and power. "One last question, Ms. Morgan," Ethan said, leaning forward. "Why do you want this position? And don't give me the standard answer about career advancement or professional growth." Kate considered his question for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Honesty, then. I excelled at Meridian, but the work became predictable. I'm looking for a challenge that will push me beyond my comfort zone. Your reputation suggests you would provide exactly that." She met his gaze directly. "And frankly, Mr. Blackwood, I believe I might be one of the few people who wouldn't be intimidated by your lifestyle or your temperament." Ethan couldn't help but smile, the first genuine smile he'd felt in weeks. "Most people try to flatter me during interviews." "I'm not most people," she replied simply, "and I suspect flattery isn't what you're looking for." He studied her for a long moment. There was something enigmatic about her, a depth he couldn't quite place. In his world of superficial interactions and transactional relationships, Kate Morgan seemed almost out of place. "When can you start?" he asked, surprising himself with the quick decision. "Tomorrow, if needed." "Tomorrow it is, then. Gerald will show you out and provide the details." After she left, Ethan returned to the balcony, watching as Kate walked to her modest car in the circular driveway below. Something about her lingered in his mind, not just her competence or her directness, but a quality he couldn't quite name. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of curiosity about another person. The fundraiser that evening was like all the others, a blur of fake smiles, air kisses, and conversations about nothing of consequence. The elite of New York society mingled in his great hall, admiring his art collection and subtly competing with one another through designer outfits and whispered gossip. "Ethan, darling," called Vivian Harrington, a recently divorced socialite who had made her intentions toward him painfully obvious. "This party is divine." "Thank you, Vivian," he replied mechanically. "You must tell me who did the floral arrangements. They're absolutely spectacular." As she prattled on, Ethan found his thoughts drifting back to Kate Morgan and the straightforward way she had spoken to him. In this sea of pretense, the memory of their honest conversation stood out like a beacon. Later that night, after the last guest had departed and the catering staff had cleared away all evidence of the event, Ethan sat alone in his library with a glass of scotch. The house was quiet, empty, its vastness emphasizing his solitude. He opened his laptop and on impulse searched for more information about Kate Morgan. There was surprisingly little to find. A LinkedIn profile with a professional photo that matched the reserved woman he'd met. A brief mention in a Meridian Technologies press release. No social media presence, no digital footprint beyond the basics. In an age where most lives were documented in exhaustive detail online, Kate's relative anonymity was unusual, especially for someone her age. It made her even more intriguing. Ethan closed his laptop, finishing his scotch in a single swallow. Tomorrow, Kate Morgan would enter his world, a world that had become increasingly empty despite all its fullness. The thought stirred something in him he hadn't felt in a long time: anticipation. Kate Morgan arrived at the Blackwood estate precisely at 7 the next morning. The security guard at the gate had been expecting her, and the house manager, Gerald, waited at the front entrance to escort her inside. "Mr. Blackwood is in his home office," Gerald explained as they walked through the grand foyer. "He typically begins his day at 5:30 and expects his first briefing by 7:15. Coffee, black, no sugar, and the financial summaries from Asian markets should be waiting for him." Kate nodded, mentally cataloguing each detail. "And his preferred breakfast. Most days just the coffee," Gerald replied, "though on Sundays he takes a proper breakfast on the Eastern Terrace, weather permitting, of course." As they approached the office, Gerald lowered his voice. "A word of advice, Ms. Morgan. Mr. Blackwood values efficiency above all else. He detests small talk and unnecessary pleasantries. Be direct, be precise, and above all, be prepared." "Understood," Kate said, straightening her blazer. "Thank you, Gerald." The house manager nodded and left her at the massive oak doors that led to Ethan's office. Kate took a deep breath, knocked once, and entered. Ethan Blackwood sat behind, an imposing desk of polished mahogany, 3 computer screens arrayed before him, displaying various market data and news feeds. He didn't look up as she entered. "The Nikkei closed down 2%, he said without preamble. "I need to speak with our Tokyo office before they leave for the day. Arrange a call for 9 o'clock. "Already done," Kate replied, setting a leather portfolio on his desk. "I've prepared briefing notes on the market shifts and arranged for Mr. Tanaka to join the call with his full team. I've also taken the liberty of pulling the quarterly reports from our Asian holdings for your review." Ethan looked up, surprise, briefly crossing his features before he masked it with his usual impassive expression. "You've been busy. It's my job to anticipate your needs, Mr. Blackwood." She opened the portfolio, revealing neatly organized documents. "I've also scheduled your calls for today with logical breaks between meetings, confirmed your dinner with the board of Blackwood Foundation, and rescheduled your quarterly physical with Dr. Levine for next Tuesday instead of Thursday, as there's a conflict with the Goldman Sachs meeting." A hint of a smile touched Ethan's lips. "Impressive start. I aim to exceed expectations, not just meet them." Kate placed his coffee on the desk, then stepped back. "Will there be anything else for now?" Ethan studied her for a moment. "Yes, join me for the Tokyo call. I want you to take notes on their market strategy for the coming quarter." "Of course." The day unfolded with a relentless pace that would have overwhelmed most people. Kate moved through it with calm efficiency, anticipating Ethan's needs often before he voiced them. By evening, when Ethan prepared to leave for his dinner with the foundation board, there was an unmistakable shift in his demeanor, a slight relaxation of the perpetual tension he carried. "You did well today," he said as they stood in the mansion's entryway. "Better than I expected." "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Tomorrow we fly to Chicago for meetings with Midwest Capital. The jet leaves at 6. Be ready." "I'll have everything prepared," Kate assured him. After Ethan departed in his chauffeur-driven Bentley, Kate remained at the estate, organizing files in her new office adjacent to his. The room clearly designed as an afterthought, had been hastily cleared for her use. Unlike the rest of the mansion, with its meticulous design and luxurious furnishings, this space felt sterile and impersonal. She worked until nearly midnight, familiarizing herself with Ethan's complex schedule, business holdings, and personal preferences. In a desk drawer, she found a folder containing notes from previous assistants, some barely legible, written in apparent frustration. One page simply read, "Impossible man," in angry capital letters. Kate smiled to herself. They had misunderstood the assignment. Ethan Blackwood wasn't impossible. He was wounded, hiding behind walls of wealth and work to avoid confronting his pain. As she was about to leave, Kate noticed a photograph partially hidden beneath papers on the credenza. She carefully extracted it, a younger Ethan with a beautiful dark-haired woman and a teenage girl, all smiling on a sailboat. Clara and Olivia, she presumed. The happiness in Ethan's eyes in the photo bore no resemblance to the cold, detached man she had met. She carefully returned the photograph to its place and gathered her things to leave. As she walked through the silent mansion, her footsteps echoing on marble floors, Kate couldn't help but feel the emptiness of the space, a perfect reflection of its owner's heart. The next morning, Kate arrived at the private airfield before dawn. Ethan was already there, speaking with the pilot when she approached. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood," she said, handing him a travel folio. "Today's itinerary, briefing notes on Midwest Capital's recent acquisitions, and the latest projections from our analytics team." They boarded the luxurious private jet, and Kate took a seat across from Ethan in the main cabin. As they took off, she noticed how he stared out the window, his expression distant. "You never asked why I left Meridian Technologies," Kate said suddenly, breaking the silence. Ethan turned to her, one eyebrow raised. "I assumed it was as you said, you wanted a challenge." "That's part of it," she acknowledged, "but there's more." "I'm listening." "I was engaged to the CFO," Kate explained. "When I discovered he was embezzling company funds, I reported him. The company handled it quietly. No charges filed, just a resignation and a settlement. But afterward, despite doing the right thing, I became a reminder of an embarrassing episode they preferred to forget." Ethan studied her with renewed interest. "That took courage." "It wasn't courage so much as integrity," she replied. "Some lines shouldn't be crossed regardless of personal cost." "And your engagement?" "Ended, obviously." Kate's expression remained neutral, but Ethan detected a flicker of old pain in her eyes. "I learned an important lesson about appearances versus reality." "A valuable lesson in our world," Ethan agreed, "though not one everyone has the strength to learn." The conversation shifted to business matters, but something had changed in their dynamic. A tentative bridge had formed, two people who had glimpsed behind each other's professional facades. The Chicago meetings proceeded smoothly, with Kate proving herself indispensable. She seemed to anticipate every need, from having additional market data ready when discussions took unexpected turns to smoothly handling a potential conflict, when Midwest Capital's CEO made an inappropriate comment about a female executive. That evening, they dined at an exclusive restaurant overlooking Lake Michigan. The establishment had closed for Ethan's private use, a common occurrence in his world. "Is this how you always dine?" Kate asked, looking around the empty restaurant. "Surrounded by no one." Ethan swirled his wineglass thoughtfully. "Privacy has its advantages." "And its costs," she countered. "Isolation isn't the same as privacy." He regarded her with curiosity. Most people in his orbit carefully avoided any statement that might be construed as criticism. "You're unusually candid for someone in your position. Would you prefer I wasn't?" "No," he admitted. "It's refreshing." As their meal progressed, Ethan found himself speaking more freely than he had in years. He shared stories about the early days of building his company, the risks he had taken, the failures that had preceded his success. Kate listened attentively, asking insightful questions that revealed her own sharp business acumen. "You're wasted as an assistant," he commented. "You could be running your own division with your understanding of market dynamics." Kate smiled. "Perhaps someday. For now, I'm exactly where I want to be." The statement lingered between them, carrying a weight neither acknowledged. Over the following weeks, Kate became an integral part of Ethan's daily life. She streamlined his business, operations, reorganized his charitable foundation, and even began the delicate work of helping repair his relationship with Olivia, suggesting he make more frequent trips to New Haven to see his daughter on her terms. One evening, after a particularly successful day where Blackwood Investments had closed a major acquisition, Ethan found Kate working late in her office. "You should have gone home hours ago," he said, leaning against the doorframe. She looked up from her laptop. "I wanted to finalize the press release for tomorrow. Your competitors will be scrambling to respond, and we need to control the narrative." Ethan nodded, then hesitated. "Have dinner with me." Kate's expression remained composed, but surprise flickered in her eyes. "Is this a business dinner, Mr. Blackwood?" "Ethan," he corrected, "and no, just dinner." A moment of silence stretched between them, a silent acknowledgement of a line about to be crossed. "All right," she finally said, "just dinner." They dined. On the terrace of the Hamptons estate, the ocean providing a rhythmic soundtrack to their conversation. For the first time, they spoke not of business or schedules or investments, but of books they had read, places they had traveled, music they enjoyed. The discovery of these shared interests seemed to surprise them both. "You know so much about me," Ethan said as they finished their meal, "my businesses, my schedule, my preferences, yet I realize I know very little about you, Kate. What would you like to know?" "Everything," he said simply. "The real Kate Morgan, not just the perfect assistant." She smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her usually reserved features. The real Kate Morgan grew up in a small town in Vermont. Her father was a high school teacher, her mother a nurse. She put herself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, studied business and economics, and discovered she had a talent for organization and problem-solving. "And what does the real Kate Morgan want from life?" Ethan asked, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. Kate looked out toward the ocean, her profile illuminated by moonlight. "Authenticity," she answered finally. "In a world built on appearances and transactions, I want something real." The weight of her words hung in the air between them. Ethan felt an unfamiliar tightening in his chest, a longing he had buried so deeply he had almost forgotten its existence. "Authenticity is rare in my world," he admitted. "Yes," she agreed, meeting his gaze. "That's what makes it valuable." Later that night, after Kate had gone home, Ethan stood on his balcony, the same spot where he had stood the day before meeting her. The emptiness that had been his constant companion for 5 years felt somehow different. Not gone, but changed. For the first time since Clara, he found himself thinking about the future rather than the past. Across town, in her modest apartment, Kate sat at her small kitchen table, a cup of tea going cold before her. She had come to the Blackwood estate with a purpose, one she had not yet fulfilled. But the man she was discovering beneath the cold, billionaire exterior was not the monster she had expected to find. She opened her laptop and stared at the files she had secretly copied from Ethan's personal records, documents related to Clara Blackwood's final days and the circumstances surrounding her illness. The truth was there, waiting to be uncovered. Kate closed the laptop without reading further. What had begun as a simple mission was becoming complicated by feelings she hadn't anticipated. The line between professional and personal was blurring, and with it, her certainty about what she had come to do. The Boston Symphony Orchestra played Debussy's Clair de Lune as Ethan and Kate moved through the elegant crowd at the Blackwood Foundation's annual gala. 3 months into her employment, Kate had transformed from merely his assistant to something undefined yet essential in his life. Tonight, she wore a midnight blue gown that contrasted with the flashier attire of the socialites surrounding them. Her simplicity made her stand out, a fact not lost on the curious eyes that followed their movement across the ballroom. "Mrs. Harrington is approaching at 2 o'clock, Kate murmured. "She's donated substantially to the Foundation's education initiative and will want to discuss the new scholarship program." Ethan nodded, his hand resting lightly on the small of Kate's back as he guided her through the crowd. The touch was unnecessary, a small intimacy neither acknowledged but both felt. Ethan, darling, Vivian Harrington's voice cut through the ambient chatter. The gala is magnificent. You've outdone yourself this year. Thank you, Vivian, Ethan replied with practiced charm. Although the credit belongs to Ms. Morgan and her team, she's revolutionized the Foundation's approach. Vivian's smile tightened as she assessed Kate. How? Fortunate for you to have found such competent help. Perhaps Ms. Morgan could share her organizational secrets with my staff someday. Perhaps, Kate replied with a polite smile. I'd be happy to connect your office with our Foundation team. The conversation continued with the usual social niceties, but Kate noticed how Ethan subtly shifted the topic whenever Vivian attempted to claim his exclusive attention. His body language had changed in recent weeks, less rigid, more open. He smiled more frequently, though only certain people seemed to elicit the expression. As the evening progressed, Kate excused herself to check on the auction preparations. In a quiet hallway away from the festivities, she leaned against a wall and took a deep breath. The lines she had drawn for herself were blurring dangerously. What had begun as a professional relationship had evolved into something neither of them had named, but both increasingly relied upon. Her phone buzzed with a text message. We need to talk. You're getting too close. Remember why you're there. Kate stared at the message from her brother, Michael, feeling the weight of her original purpose return. She had come to the Blackwood estate with a mission to uncover the truth about Clara Blackwood's illness and Ethan's role in it. Michael, a former researcher at Blackwood Pharmaceutical, had been convinced that experimental treatments developed by Ethan's company had been rushed to market without adequate testing, resulting in severe side effects that had contributed to Clara's deterioration. Is everything all right? Kate turned to find Ethan watching her, concern evident in his expression. Yes, fine, she said quickly, slipping her phone into her clutch, just confirming the auction sequence with the team. Ethan moved closer, studying her face. You're a terrible liar, Kate. I'm not. Your left eyebrow twitches slightly when you're being dishonest, he said softly. I've noticed it before. It's endearing, actually. Kate felt her cheeks warm. Just a personal matter, nothing that can't wait until after the gala. He seemed about to press further when they were interrupted by Gerald. Sir, your daughter has arrived. Ethan's expression brightened immediately. Olivia's here. She wasn't expected until tomorrow. She wanted to surprise you, Gerald explained. She's in the main ballroom looking for you. As they returned to the gala, Kate watched the transformation in Ethan as he spotted his daughter across the room. The coolly controlled billionaire vanished, replaced by a father whose face radiated joy. Olivia, a beautiful young woman with her mother's dark hair and her father's intense gaze, embraced him warmly. Kate hung back, giving them space for their reunion, but Ethan beckoned her forward. Olivia, this is Kate Morgan, my... He hesitated, the word assistant suddenly inadequate. The woman who finally got my father to visit me at Yale more than once a semester, Olivia finished with a knowing smile. It's nice to finally meet you, Kate. Dad mentions you in practically every conversation we have now. Kate shook Olivia's hand, surprised by the warmth of her greeting. Your father speaks of you constantly as well. Your research on sustainable investment strategies is impressive. Olivia's eyebrows rose. You've read my thesis proposal? Kate reads everything, Ethan said, a note of pride in his voice, and remembers it all. The three of them spent the next hour together, and Kate observed the healing that had begun between father and daughter. The tentative bridge of communication she had helped establish was strengthening into something genuine. Watching them together, she felt a pang of guilt about her hidden agenda, an agenda that, if pursued, might destroy this fragile reconciliation. Later, as the gala wound down, Kate found herself alone on the terrace overlooking the Foundation's sculptured gardens. The spring air carried the scent of blooming cherry trees, and city lights glittered beyond the property's boundaries. Penny, for your thoughts? She turned to find Olivia joining her at the railing. Just taking a moment to breathe, Kate replied. Events like these can be overwhelming. Olivia studied her with the same penetrating gaze her father possessed. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Based on Dad's previous assistance? Someone ambitious, calculating, probably sleeping with him to advance their career. Olivia's bluntness was refreshing. You're different. Kate kept her expression neutral. I'm just doing my job. No, Olivia shook her head. You're changing. Him? I haven't seen him this present since before Mom got sick. The mention of Clara created an opening Kate had been waiting for, yet now found herself reluctant to exploit. He loved your mother very much, she said carefully. Yes, Olivia agreed, her eyes distant. Those last months were hell for both of them. The experimental treatments, the constant pain, the hope that kept building and crashing. She glanced at Kate. Did you know my father spent billions trying to save her? Accelerated research programs, clinical trials, specialists from around the world. Kate's heart beat faster. The treatments were developed by Blackwood Pharmaceutical. Some of them. Dad believed they were the answer, that his own company could save Mom. Olivia's voice grew quieter. When they didn't work, when some of them made her worse, he blamed himself. He's carried that guilt ever since. This was the confirmation Kate had been seeking, the connection between Ethan's pharmaceutical company and Clara's treatment. Yet, instead of vindication, she felt only a deepening unease. Your father is a good man, Kate said softly, surprising herself with the sincerity behind the words. He's trying to be, Olivia agreed. And you're helping him remember how. She touched Kate's arm gently. Whatever you're doing, please don't stop. Olivia left her alone with these words echoing in her mind. Minutes later, Ethan joined her on the terrace, loosening his bow tie with a sigh of relief. Successful night, he said, coming to stand beside her. The foundation raised nearly 20 million. New record. Congratulations, Kate replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the tumult of her thoughts. Ethan turned to face her. How you've been distant tonight, since that text message. It's nothing. Don't, he interrupted. Whatever it is, I'd rather know. Kate met his gaze, seeing the trust that had gradually built between them. The thought of betraying it made her physically ill. My brother, she admitted finally. He's going through a difficult time and feels I'm not being supportive enough. It wasn't entirely a lie. Michael had struggled since losing his position at Blackwood Pharmaceutical, becoming increasingly obsessed with exposing what he saw as corporate malfeasance. Family complications, Ethan nodded understandingly. I'm familiar with those. He hesitated, then added, You've never mentioned a brother before. We're not close in the conventional sense. Ethan studied her face. There's more you're not telling me. Kate looked away, unable to bear the weight of his gaze. There's more to everyone's story, Ethan. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him in the cool night air. In these past months, you've seen me at my worst, impatient, demanding, closed off. You've witnessed my failings as a father, my coldness to others. You've had access to my most private business dealings and personal affairs. His voice lowered. You know me better than anyone alive, Kate, yet I realize I've barely scratched the surface of who you are. The vulnerability in his admission caught her off guard. This was Ethan Blackwood without armor, a man reaching out, asking to be met. Halfway. What do you want to know, she asked, her voice barely audible. Everything you're willing to share, he answered simply. Starting with what's been troubling you these past few days. Kate took a deep breath. She could fabricate a story, maintain her cover, continue the deception, or she could offer a partial truth, a step toward the authenticity she claimed to value. My brother used to work for Blackwood Pharmaceutical, she said finally. He was part of the research team developing treatments for neurodegenerative conditions. Ethan's expression shifted to one of surprise, then wariness. When? 5 to 6 years ago. He was let go during a restructuring. Understanding dawned in Ethan's eyes. During the period when Clara was ill. Kate nodded, unable to speak. And this connection, is this why you sought employment with me? His voice had taken on a dangerous edge. It's more complicated than that, she whispered. Ethan stepped back, the openness in his expression vanishing. Did your brother send you to spy on me? To access confidential research data? No, Kate said quickly. It wasn't like that. Then explain what it was like, he demanded, his voice cold. Explain why my assistant, someone I've come to trust, has been hiding such a significant connection. The moment stretched between them, taut with unspoken accusations and fears. In the ballroom beyond, the last notes of the orchestra faded away, leaving them in silence. Michael believes that certain experimental treatments developed by Blackwood Pharmaceutical were rushed through testing, Kate finally said. That safety, protocols were bypassed due to personal interests. Because of Clara, Ethan stated flatly. Yes. And you? What do you believe, Kate? She met his gaze directly. I don't know what to believe anymore. The admission hung in the air between them. Ethan's expression was unreadable. His earlier warmth completely vanished. I should have disclosed the connection, Kate acknowledged. I'm sorry. Sorry for the deception, or sorry you were discovered. His tone was ice. Ethan? Mr. Blackwood, he corrected. The formality, a deliberate reinforcement of the distance suddenly between them. I think it's best if you leave now. Gerald will see that your personal items from the office are returned to you. Kate felt as though the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. You're firing me? I'm removing a potential security breach from my organization, he replied coldly. Your final compensation will be generous. I suggest you use it to help your brother find constructive ways to deal with his grievances. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, his posture rigid with controlled anger. Kate stood alone on the terrace watching as the man she had grown to care for deeply retreated behind walls. She had only just begun to scale. Inside the emptying ballroom, Olivia intercepted her father. Dad? What's wrong? You look like you're about to explode. Not now, Olivia, he said tersely. Yes, now, she insisted, placing a hand on his arm. What happened with Kate? I saw you two talking and then you stormed off. Ethan's jaw tightened. She wasn't who she claimed to be. What does that mean? It means I made a mistake, he snapped. I let someone get close, trusted them, and they betrayed that trust. It won't happen again. Olivia's expression softened with understanding. Oh, Dad, what exactly did she do? She concealed important information that directly relates to your mother. And did you give her a chance to explain? Ethan's silence was answer enough. You know, Olivia said gently, for someone so brilliant in business, you can be remarkably obtuse about people, especially people you care about. I don't care about... Stop, Olivia interrupted. I've seen how you look at her, how she looks at you. Whatever she did or didn't disclose, you owe it to yourself to hear her out completely before you build another wall around yourself. Ethan stared at his daughter, struck by the maturity and insight in her words. In her determined expression, he saw echoes of Clara, the same unwillingness to let him retreat into isolation when faced with emotional challenges. When did you become so wise? He asked softly. I had good teachers, she replied with a sad smile. Both of them. Across the city, Kate returned to her apartment, her mind reeling from the evening's events. Everything had unraveled so quickly. The trust, the connection, the potential for something meaningful. She opened her laptop and found dozens of messages from Michael, each more agitated than the last. The final one simply read, "If you won't expose him, I will." Kate closed her eyes, feeling trapped between loyalties. Her brother, damaged and driven, saw Ethan Blackwood as the architect of a corporate cover-up that had contributed to Clara's suffering. But the Ethan she had come to know was more complex, a man haunted by loss, driven by guilt, trying in his flawed way to make amends. Her phone rang, displaying Michael's number. With a heavy heart, she answered. It's over, she said simply. He knows about the connection. Then we move to Plan B, Michael replied, his voice frighteningly calm. I've compiled all the research data, the internal memos, the suppressed test results. By morning, every major news outlet will have copies, Blackwood Pharmaceutical will never recover, and neither will his reputation. Kate felt a cold dread wash over her. Michael, wait. There's more to this story than we understood. Don't tell me you've fallen for his act, Michael scoffed. The grieving widower, the misunderstood genius. He's a manipulator, Kate. Everything he touches becomes a possession, including you. That's not true, she protested. He's carrying enormous guilt over what happened to Clara. The treatments were meant to help her. Help her? The accelerated trials caused complications that hastened her deterioration. He was so desperate to save her that he ignored the warning signs, pushed the research too fast. And when it all went wrong, he buried the evidence and discredited anyone who tried to speak out. Kate closed her eyes, the pieces finally coming together. Including you. Especially me, Michael confirmed. I was going to publish my findings in a medical journal. The next day I was fired, my research confiscated, and my reputation smeared with accusations of falsifying data. And you've wanted revenge ever since, Kate said softly, recognizing the obsession that had consumed her brother. I want justice, he corrected, for Clara Blackwood and the other trial participants who suffered. Their families deserve to know the truth. Kate thought of Olivia, finally beginning to heal her relationship with her father, of Ethan slowly emerging from his isolation. The truth Michael wanted to reveal would destroy them both. Give me 24 hours, she pleaded, before you release anything. One day to try to resolve this another way. There is no other way, Michael insisted. Please, Kate begged. For me. A long silence followed. 24 hours, he finally agreed. Not a minute more. After hanging up, Kate sat motionless in her darkened apartment. The choice before her seemed impossible. Protect Ethan and Olivia from a devastating public scandal, or stand with her brother in his quest for justice. Either way, people she cared about would be hurt. She opened her laptop again and began sifting through the files she had collected during her time at the Blackwood estate. Somewhere in the thousands of documents lay the complete truth, not just Michael's version, nor Ethan's, but the complex reality that existed between their perspectives. As dawn broke over the city, Kate finally found what she had been searching for, an internal memo from Blackwood Pharmaceutical's ethics committee dated just weeks before Clara's condition had worsened dramatically. The document detailed concerns about accelerated testing protocols and recommended additional safety studies before proceeding with human trials. At the bottom was a handwritten note in Ethan's distinctive script. Proceed as planned. I take full responsibility. 4 words that confirmed Michael's allegations while revealing the depth of Ethan's personal culpability. He hadn't been a callous corporate executive ignoring safety for profit. He had been a desperate husband, willing to try anything, accept any risk, to save the woman he loved. Kate printed the document and several related files, then dressed for what she knew would be the most difficult conversation of her life. Whether Ethan would listen to her or not, she had to try to bridge the gulf between the partial truths that had driven both men to their current positions. As she left her apartment, Kate's phone chimed with a text message from an unexpected source, Olivia Blackwood. He's at the beach house in Southampton, alone. He needs to hear what you have to say, even if he doesn't know it yet. The Southampton. Beach House was a stark contrast to Ethan's Hamptons estate. While the latter was an architectural showcase designed to impress, this weathered cedar-shingled retreat had been Clara's sanctuary, a place where pretense was abandoned at the door. Kate had seen photos of it in family albums, but had never visited. Now, standing on the windswept dune overlooking the structure, she understood why Clara had loved it. There was an honesty to its simplicity that spoke of authentic living rather than conspicuous wealth. Kate's rental car sat in the gravel driveway beside Ethan's Porsche. She had been parked there for nearly an hour, gathering the courage to approach. The manila folder on the passenger seat contained documents that would either bridge the chasm between them or widen it beyond repair. Finally, she stepped out of the car, the sea breeze immediately tangling her hair. The folder clutched tightly to her chest. She walked the weathered path to the front door. Before she could knock, it swung open. Ethan stood in the doorway, unshaven and dressed in faded jeans and a simple grey sweater, so different from his usual impeccable appearance that Kate momentarily faltered. "Olivia told me you might come," he said, his voice neutral. "She's become quite the meddler." "She cares about you," Kate replied. "And you? What brings you here, Ms. Morgan? More revelations about your hidden agenda?" Despite the harshness of his words, Kate detected something beneath the anger, a profound weariness, perhaps even a flicker of hope that she had come with answers rather than more questions. "I have information you need to see," she said, holding up the folder, "about Clara's treatment, about what really happened." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside, allowing her to enter. The interior of the beach house was warm and lived in, comfortable. Furniture arranged to maximize views of the ocean, bookshelves overflowing with well-read volumes, and photographs everywhere. So many photographs of happier times, Ethan, Clara, and Olivia through the years, their love for one another evident in every captured moment. "You have 15 minutes, Ethan said, gesturing toward the living room. "Then I want you gone." Kate sat on the edge of a worn leather sofa, while Ethan remained standing, arms crossed defensively. She opened the folder and removed the Ethics Committee memo. "This was written 6 weeks before Clara's condition worsened," she explained, holding it out to him. "The committee recommended additional safety studies before proceeding with human trials of the experimental treatment." Ethan didn't take the document. "I'm aware of what it says." "And this?" Kate removed another paper, a physician's report detailing concerning preliminary results. "Also familiar," he replied tersely. "Then you know what Michael has believed all these years is partially true," Kate continued. "The accelerated trials, the bypassed safety protocols, they weren't just corporate decisions. They were personal ones. Your decisions. Is this why you came, to confirm what I already know?" Ethan's voice cracked slightly. "That in my desperation to save Clara, I pushed for treatments that weren't ready, that I used my position and wealth to circumvent processes designed to protect patients like her, that my actions may have hastened rather than helped her." The raw pain in his admission caught Kate off guard. "You knew?" "Of course I knew," he whispered, finally sinking into a chair opposite her. "I've lived with that knowledge every day for 5 years. I rushed the development because we were running out of time. Clara was getting worse and conventional treatments weren't working. Why didn't you ever acknowledge this publicly? Clear the researchers like my brother who raised concerns?" Ethan's gaze shifted to a photograph of Clara on the mantelpiece. "Because acknowledging it would mean facing what I'd done. It was easier to bury the evidence, discredit the whistleblowers, and drown myself in work." He looked back at Kate, his eyes haunted. "I'm a coward, Kate. Behind all the wealth and power, that's what you'll find, a coward who couldn't face his own culpability." The admission hung in the air between them. This was the truth Kate had sought, yet hearing it brought her no satisfaction. "Michael plans to release all the documentation to the media," she said quietly. "I've convinced him to wait 24 hours, but after that, everything becomes public. The internal memos, the rushed trials, the suppressed physician reports, all of it." Ethan nodded slowly, resignation replacing anger. "He has every right. I destroyed his career when he tried to speak out." "There's another option," Kate suggested carefully. "You could come forward yourself. Take responsibility. Implement the reforms at Blackwood Pharmaceutical that should have been in place 5 years ago. And watch my company's stock collapse. Risk criminal charges? Subject Olivia to public scrutiny and shame?" Ethan shook his head. "The damage is done, Kate. I can't undo it." "No, you can't undo it," she agreed. "But you can face it. That's the difference between a mistake and a failure of character." Ethan studied her, a flicker of his old intensity returning. "You sound like Clara. She always believed people could change, that it's never too late to choose a different path." She was right. Was she? Ethan stood and walked to the window overlooking the ocean. "I've spent 5 years building walls. Between myself and what happened. Walls of money, of power, of emotional distance. I don't know if I can dismantle them now." Kate joined him at the window, careful to maintain space between them. "You already started to. With Olivia. with the Foundation's new direction, even with me. And look how that ended, he said bitterly. It hasn't ended, Kate replied softly. Not unless you choose for it to. Ethan turned to her, his expression suddenly vulnerable. Why are you here, Kate, really? You got what you wanted, confirmation of your brother's allegations. You could have sent these documents to the press yourself. I'm here because... Kate hesitated, then decided on complete honesty. Because somewhere between investigating you and knowing you, I started to care about what happens to you. To Olivia, even to the legacy Clara left behind. So this is pity? No, she said firmly. This is belief that you're more than your worst mistakes, that you can choose to be the man Clara saw in you, the father Olivia needs, the person who used his wealth and influence for genuine good rather than self-protection. Ethan's phone rang, interrupting the moment. He glanced at the screen. It's Olivia. You should answer it. He put the call on speaker. Olivia? Dad. His daughter's voice was urgent. Have you seen the news? Michael Morgan is giving a press conference in an hour. He's saying he has evidence about Mom's treatment and Blackwood Pharmaceuticals cover-up. Ethan's eyes met Kate's in alarm. What happened to 24 hours? He mouthed silently. Kate shook her head, her expression reflecting her own shock and betrayal. Dad, are you there? I'm here, Ethan replied, his voice remarkably steady. And yes, I'm aware of the situation. What are you going to do? Olivia asked. The business channels are already speculating. Blackwood Pharmaceutical stock is starting to slide. Ethan was silent for a long moment, his gaze never leaving Kate's. In his eyes she could see a battle being waged between the man who had hidden from truth for 5 years and the man he could choose to become. Dad? I'm going to tell the truth, he said finally. All of it. Kate felt her breath catch at his decision. What truth? Olivia asked, confusion evident in her voice. The hardest kind, sweetheart. The truth about myself. About decisions I made during your mother's illness. About mistakes I've been hiding from. His voice grew stronger. With each word. I need you to trust me, Olivia. This will be difficult for both of us, but it's long overdue. After ending the call, Ethan turned to Kate. Your brother gave me no choice. He's been consumed by this for years, Kate explained. After losing his position, his reputation, he became obsessed with exposing what happened. I thought I could reason with him, but I was wrong. Then we need to move quickly. Ethan's demeanor transformed, the decisive businessman returning. Call Gerald. Have him arrange a press conference at Blackwood Tower in 2 hours, before your brother's event. What are you going to say? Everything, Ethan replied simply. The complete truth. That I pressured the research team to accelerate trials of an experimental treatment for Clara. That when concerns were raised, I silenced them. That people like your brother were right to question the protocols. That I've spent 5 years hiding from my responsibility. Kate stared at him in astonishment. You'd risk everything. Your company, your reputation, possibly even criminal charges. Some things matter more than wealth or reputation, Kate. His expression softened. I think you've been trying to teach me that all along. 2 hours later, Ethan stood before a hastily assembled press corps in the lobby of Blackwood Tower. Kate watched from the side as camera lights illuminated his face. Gone was the cold, detached billionaire she had first met. In his place stood a man prepared to face his past with courage that had nothing to do with business acumen or financial power. 5 years ago, Ethan began, his voice steady. My wife Clara was diagnosed with a rare neurodegenerative condition. As her condition worsened, conventional treatments proved ineffective. As the CEO of Blackwood Pharmaceutical and a husband desperate to save his wife, I made decisions that violated not only corporate ethics, but my own moral code. A murmur ran through the assembled reporters as they realized the magnitude of what was unfolding. I ordered research teams to accelerate the development of experimental treatments. When safety concerns were raised by conscientious researchers, like Dr. Michael Morgan, I used my position to silence those voices. When preliminary results indicated potential risks, I pushed forward anyway. Ethan paused, his gaze finding Olivia standing near Kate. His daughter's eyes shone with tears, but she nodded encouragingly. Clara's condition worsened dramatically following the experimental treatment. While we cannot know with certainty if the treatment accelerated her decline, the possibility has haunted me every day since. Rather than face this truth, I buried it. I discredited those who tried to speak out. I hid behind legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements. For that I am profoundly sorry. The room had gone completely silent, every reporter transfixed by the unprecedented confession. Effective immediately, I am establishing an independent review board to examine all research protocols at Blackwood Pharmaceutical. I am creating a fund to compensate any patients or families affected by the accelerated trials. I am personally reaching out to researchers like Dr. Morgan, whose careers suffered for simply trying to uphold ethical standards. Ethan's voice grew stronger with each commitment. I cannot undo the past. I cannot bring back those who suffered because of my actions, but I can ensure that Blackwood Pharmaceutical becomes a model of ethical research moving forward. I can use my resources to advance medical safety rather than circumvent it. And I can finally honor Clara's memory by facing the truth with the courage she always showed. As questions erupted from the press, Kate felt her phone buzz. A text from Michael. "Press conference cancelled. Call me." She slipped away to a quiet corridor and dialed her brother. "You knew," Michael accused when he answered. "You knew he was going to do this." "I hoped," Kate corrected. "But I didn't know until it happened." "He admitted everything," Michael said, disbelief evident in his voice. "Everything I've been trying to prove for years." "Yes," Kate agreed. "And he's taking responsibility in a way that will actually create change. The independent review board, the compensation fund, those were your goals, weren't they? To prevent this from happening to other patients." A long silence followed. "I wanted justice," Michael finally said. "I just never expected it to come like this." "Will you meet with him?" Kate asked. "He mentioned reaching out to affected researchers. That includes you, Michael." "I don't know if I can forgive him," her brother admitted. "You don't have to forgive him," Kate said gently. "But meeting might help you both move forward." After ending the call, Kate returned to find the press conference concluded. Ethan stood with Olivia, their foreheads pressed together in an intimate moment of understanding. When he spotted Kate, he extended his hand toward her in invitation. "Thank you," he said simply when she joined them. "For what?" "For believing I could be better than I was," he replied. "Even when I gave you every reason to think otherwise." Olivia squeezed both their hands. "I need to get back to Yale, but I'll be home next weekend." She kissed her father's cheek, then Kate's, before departing. Alone together in the now empty lobby, Ethan and Kate faced each other with a new understanding between them. "What happens now?" Kate asked. "Now comes the hard part," Ethan admitted. "Rebuilding Blackwood Pharmaceutical with genuine ethical standards, making amends to those I've harmed, learning to live without hiding from the past." He took her hand in his. "I'd like you to be part of that journey, Kate. Not as my assistant, but as my partner." "Partner in what sense?" she asked, needing clarity after so much ambiguity. "In every sense," he replied softly. "Business, philanthropy, life." His eyes held a vulnerability she had never seen before. "I've spent 5 years surrounded by people who want something from me, my money, my influence, my connections. You're the first person since Clara who wanted me to be better rather than just successful. Who saw through the walls I built and still believed there was something worth salvaging." Kate felt tears threatening. "It won't be easy. There will be lawsuits, investigations, public scrutiny." "I know," he acknowledged. "But for the first time in years, I'm not afraid to face whatever comes. Not if you're beside me." Later that evening, they returned to the Southampton beach house, both emotionally exhausted from the day's events. As the sun set over the Atlantic, they walked along the shoreline, the rhythmic wash of waves providing a peaceful counterpoint to the turmoil of recent days. "Clara loved this beach," Ethan said as they paused to watch the changing colors of the sky. "She used to say that the ocean reminds us of what truly matters." that all the wealth and power in the world means nothing against its vastness. She sounds like she was very wise, Kate observed. She was, Ethan agreed, and she would have liked you. Your integrity, your directness. He smiled sadly. She would have approved of you calling me out on my worst tendencies. Kate squeezed his hand. I wish I could have known her. In some ways, you do, Ethan replied. The foundation's work, Olivia's spirit, even the better parts of me, those all carry pieces of who she was. They continued walking in companionable silence until the beach house was just a distant light on the shore. The future before them was uncertain, filled with challenges neither could fully anticipate. The path to redemption would be neither quick nor easy. But for the first time in years, Ethan Blackwood had found something more valuable than all his wealth, the courage to face his mistakes and the hope of becoming more than the sum of his past failures. As darkness settled over the beach, Kate looked at the man beside her. Not the billionaire, not the business titan, but simply Ethan, and knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The walls that had separated them, of deception, of mistrust, of past mistakes, had finally begun to crumble, revealing the possibility of something authentic in a world built on appearances. We should head back, she suggested as the temperature dropped. Ethan nodded, but before turning toward the house, he drew her into his arms. Thank you, he whispered against her hair. For what? She asked again. For showing me that it's never too late to choose a different path, he replied, echoing her earlier words. For believing in second chances. Their lips met in a kiss that held both promise and understanding, an acknowledgement of the broken roads that had led them to each other and the healing journey that lay ahead. As they walked back toward the lights of the beach house hand in hand, the ocean continued its eternal rhythm behind them, washing away footprints in the sand, erasing the past with each wave, offering with every tide the opportunity to begin anew. Dear listeners, we hope you've been moved by Ethan and Kate's journey through pain, deception, and ultimately redemption. Their story reminds us that even our deepest mistakes don't define us. It's the courage to face them that reveals our true character. For more emotionally compelling narratives like this one, we've created a special playlist of equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking the link to your left. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore the complexity of human relationships and the power of second chances. What would you have done in Kate's position? Would you have given Ethan the opportunity to redeem himself? We're eager to hear your thoughts in the comments section below.